The wind sliced my skin like icy blades as I pushed the last feed sack into the barn. At 38, I'd gotten used to the town's whispers. Victoria Hartford should just accept her time as past. A widow her age trying to run a ranch alone is pure desperation. But that March of 1882, in Darby, Montana, I had other plans. Subscribe to the channel and leave a like to get access to more stories like this. My life had become a routine of survival since William died in the sawmill accident 5 years ago. People expected me to go back east, to resign myself to being a childless widow with no future. Instead, I bought this small cattle ranch with the insurance money and decided to prove I still had a lot to offer. Darby's general store was always my quiet battlefield. Every time I walked in, conversations would drop in volume, but never fully stop. Helen, the merchant's wife, treated me with that pity disguised as kindness that deeply annoyed me. "Victoria, dear, you shouldn't be carrying those heavy things alone," she said when I picked up a 20-pound sack of flour. "I can carry it perfectly fine," I replied, adjusting the weight in my arms. Just then, a deep voice sounded behind me. "Allow me to help you with that, ma'am." I turned and found a tall man, with dark hair and eyes that looked like they'd seen many storms. He didn't look at me with pity or judgment, just simple respect I hadn't seen in years. "Benjamin Wade," he introduced himself, taking off his hat. "I work on the Morrison Ranch, but I've got a few heads of my own cattle too." "Victoria Hartford," I replied, letting him carry the flour to my wagon. "I have the small ranch down the South Road. I know the place. William did a good job with that property." The way he mentioned my deceased husband surprised me. No dramatics, no rehearsed condolences I constantly received. Just a simple acknowledgement that life goes on. "Thanks for the help," I said when he placed the sack in the wagon. "You're welcome. If you need a hand with any repairs or heavy work, my place is just a few miles north. Always willing to help a neighbor." Over the next few weeks, Benjamin started showing up in town on the same days as me. Our conversations were brief but meaningful. He talked about the difficulties of running a ranch, the changing cattle prices, planting prospects. He treated me as an equal, as someone who understood the challenges of rural life. "Have you ever thought about expanding your herd?" he asked one afternoon as we walked from the store to our wagons. "I think about it every day, but it's hard to manage everything alone." "I understand. I had to learn a lot after I left the cavalry. At first, I thought it would be impossible." "You served in the war?" "I did, but that was a long time ago. Now I prefer working the land to conflicts." There was something in the way he spoke that reassured me. Benjamin wasn't trying to impress me or convince me of anything. He just shared his experience like someone offering water to a thirsty traveler. One day, as I struggled to tie a rope on top of the wagon, Benjamin appeared beside me. "That rope's giving you trouble," he commented. "It is. I don't know why it decided to be so stubborn today." He smiled, the first time I'd seen him truly smile. Ropes have a mind of their own sometimes. His skilled fingers tied the knot in seconds, but he didn't move away immediately. For a moment, we stood there side by side, and I felt a sensation I'd completely forgotten. The comfortable presence of a man who wanted nothing more than to just be there. "Benjamin," I said as he prepared to leave. "Yes? If you want to stop by the ranch sometime for coffee, I always have the kettle on." He touched the brim of his hat. "I'd like that very much, Victoria." In the weeks that followed, Benjamin started visiting my property. At first, they were brief visits. He'd check if I was all right, if I needed anything. But gradually, those visits became part of my routine. He had a particular way of working. He never assumed I couldn't do something, but always offered help when he saw me struggling with difficult tasks. He respected my independence while showing he cared about my well-being. "You've got a good place here," he said one afternoon as we fixed a broken fence together. "William chose the location well. Good water, decent pasture. William was a lucky man." The way he said that made me stop working. I looked at him, and I saw something in his eyes that made me realize maybe I could be lucky again, too. The May morning started like any other, but my body felt strange. For 3 weeks, I'd been waking up with nausea, and my breasts were tender in a way I hadn't felt in years. Initially, I thought it was some health issue, maybe the stress of running the ranch finally taking its toll. Benjamin had spent the previous night, as he often did in recent weeks. Our intimacy had grown naturally, without hurry or pressure. He slept beside me with the tranquility of someone who had finally found his place in the world, and I had discovered I wasn't destined to spend the rest of my life alone. But that morning, as I prepared coffee, a wave of nausea hit me hard. I rushed out of the house and vomited behind the barn, holding on to the fence to keep from falling. When I recovered, I found Benjamin standing in the kitchen doorway, worry etched on his face. "Victoria, are you all right?" "I think I ate something bad yesterday," I lied, because the truth that was beginning to form in my mind seemed too impossible to speak. He approached and placed his hand on my forehead. "You don't have a fever. How long has this been happening?" "A few weeks," I admitted reluctantly. Benjamin was quiet for a long moment, his eyes studying my face. He was a practical man, used to animals and the natural cycles of life. He was probably coming to the same conclusion I was, but neither of us wanted to be the first to speak. "Victoria," he said calmly, "when was your last menstruation?" The question hit me like a lightning bolt. I started counting mentally and realized with a shock that it had been over 2 months. With all the changes in my life, with Benjamin becoming part of my routine, I simply hadn't paid attention. "It can't be," I whispered. "The doctor said I could never. 5 years of marriage to William, constant trying, they said I was barren." Benjamin approached and held my hand. "Doctors can be wrong, Victoria, and you were younger then. Sometimes these things change." "I'm 38, Benjamin. Women my age don't get pregnant, especially women who never could before. Maybe life has other plans for you." I spent the rest of the day in a mix of denial and growing hope. Benjamin didn't leave the ranch, staying nearby as if he knew I needed his presence. He tended to the animals, fixed a sticky door hinge, made small repairs I normally would have insisted on doing myself. At night, as we sat on the porch, I finally found the courage to talk about what we were both thinking. "If this is true," I said slowly, "if I'm really expecting a baby." "Then we'll have a baby," he replied simply. "You don't understand. At my age, the risks are huge, and I never could before. Maybe my body just isn't made for it." Benjamin turned to face me. "Victoria, you ran a ranch alone for 5 years. You survived the judgment of an entire town. You taught me that strength has no age. If there's anyone in the world who can do this, it's you." His words touched something deep inside me. For so long, I had internalized the comments about being too old, past my prime. But Benjamin saw possibilities where others saw limitations. 2 weeks later, we traveled to Missoula to see a doctor. The 2-day journey was tense, full of whispered conversations about what we would do if the diagnosis was confirmed. Benjamin held my hand throughout the appointment. Dr. Mitchell was an older man with gray hair and gentle manners. He examined me carefully and confirmed what we already suspected. "Congratulations, Mrs. Hartford. You are approximately 10 weeks pregnant." I felt the world spin around me. Benjamin squeezed my hand tighter. "Doctor," I asked in a trembling voice, "what are the risks for a woman my age?" Dr. Mitchell sighed. "I won't lie to you. Pregnancies after 35 carry additional risks. There can be complications during gestation, and delivery can be more difficult. But you seem healthy and strong. With proper care, there's no reason not to have hope." During the ride back, Benjamin and I talked about everything: fears, dreams, practical plans. He talked about turning the guest room into a nursery, about hiring additional help for the ranch, about how we would organize our lives to accommodate a child. "Are you sure about this?" I asked when we stopped to rest the horses. "Your life will change completely." "Victoria, my life already changed completely the day I met you. A baby will just make everything even better." When we arrived home, reality began to set in. I was pregnant at 38, something everyone, including myself, considered impossible. The fear was constant, but there was also a growing joy I barely dared to acknowledge. Benjamin began making practical changes immediately. He hired a young man to help with the heavier ranch work, insisted I stop carrying heavy things, and started spending more time on my property than his own. "You're overdoing it," I protested when he stopped me from fixing a hole in the barn roof. "I'm not overdoing it. I'm being careful with both of you." "Both of us?" He smiled. "I have a hunch it's going to be a girl." As the weeks passed, my body began to change in ways I'd never experienced. My waist gradually expanded, and for the first time in my life, I felt the movements of a life growing inside me. It was a sensation both strange and wonderful. The news spread through town quickly. Reactions varied. Some women expressed sincere concern, others made malicious comments about old women who don't know how to accept their limitations. But Benjamin was always by my side, his constant presence providing the strength I needed to ignore the negative comments. During the summer, we established a new routine. Benjamin worked on the Morrison Ranch in the morning, then spent the afternoons with me. He built a wooden cradle, his skilled hands creating something beautiful and functional. At night, we talked about names, about what it would be like to raise a child in this harsh land, about the challenges we would face. "Sometimes I can't believe this is really happening," I confessed one August night, my hand on my visibly rounding belly. "I can," Benjamin replied, placing his hand over mine. "You deserve this happiness, Victoria. You deserve to realize this dream." When September arrived, marking the start of my second trimester, I finally allowed hope to completely replace fear. The baby was moving regularly now, small kicks and movements that constantly reminded me of the life I carried. Benjamin started talking about marriage, about making our union official before the baby was born. It was a conversation I had avoided, not for lack of love, but for fear that things would change between us. But as the days shortened and winter approached, I realized I wanted our child to be born into a complete and recognized family. "We'll get married next month," I said one afternoon as he finished preparing firewood for the approaching winter. He stopped working and looked at me with surprise and joy. "Are you sure?" "I'm sure. This child will be born into a real family, with parents who love and respect each other." The smile that spread across Benjamin's face was one of the most beautiful sights I had ever witnessed. In that moment, I realized I had found not only the love of my life, but also the perfect father for our child. Patient, gentle, strong, and completely dedicated to our future together. Montana's winter arrived earlier and more severely than anyone had predicted. In January, when I was 8 months pregnant, a snowstorm began on a Tuesday morning and didn't stop for 3 days. Benjamin had moved completely into my house after our October wedding, turning our property into a true home. "The contractions are getting more regular," I told Benjamin on a cold February pre-dawn, holding my belly as a familiar pain shot through me. He immediately got out of bed, already completely alert. For the past few weeks, any change in my state put him on high alert. "How much time between contractions?" "About 10 minutes, but they're getting stronger." Benjamin looked out the window, where snow continued to fall in thick flakes. "I need to get Beatrice. Can you be alone for a few hours?" Beatrice was the most experienced midwife in the region, a 60-year-old woman who had assisted in the birth of almost every child within a 50-mile radius. Living 4 miles away, reaching her in this snowstorm would be dangerous, but we had no choice. "Go get her. I'll be fine." Benjamin kissed my forehead, put on his warmest clothes, and went out into the storm. I was left alone with the contractions that intensified with each passing hour. I walked around the house, holding on to furniture when the pain became unbearable, praying Benjamin would make it back in time. It was almost noon when I heard approaching horse hooves. Benjamin came in carrying Beatrice in his arms, both covered in snow from head to toe. "How are you feeling, dear?" Beatrice asked, taking off her heavy coat and washing her hands in the basin Benjamin had prepared. "The contractions are coming every 5 minutes now," I replied, grabbing Benjamin's hand as another wave of pain hit me. Beatrice examined me with experienced hands. "This baby's in a hurry to meet the world. Let's get everything ready." Benjamin transformed our room into an improvised hospital. He boiled water, brought clean towels, prepared everything Beatrice requested. His calmness reassured me, even when I could see the worry in his eyes. "Victoria, I need you to focus on my voice," Beatrice said, as the contractions became almost constant. "Your body knows what to do. You just need to work with it, not against it." The next few hours became a blur of pain and determination. Benjamin held my hand, whispered words of encouragement, wiped the sweat from my face. At times, the pain was so intense I thought I couldn't go on. "I can't," I groaned during a particularly strong contraction. Yes, you can, Benjamin said firmly. You're the strongest woman I know. Our daughter is almost here. I can see the head, Beatrice announced with excitement. A few more contractions, and she'll be in your arms. The next phase of labor was the most intense. Each contraction pushed me to the limits of my endurance, but also brought me closer to the moment I had dreamed of my entire life. Benjamin didn't leave my side for a second, his constant presence being my anchor in the storm of sensations. Now, Victoria! Push now! Beatrice shouted. With a final effort that seemed to drain all my energy, I felt our baby slide into Beatrice's arms. For a terrible moment, the room was absolutely silent. Then a strong, healthy cry filled the air, and I started crying with relief. It's a perfect girl, Beatrice announced, holding our daughter up for us to see. Benjamin was openly weeping, his tears falling on my hair as he leaned in to embrace us. She's beautiful, Victoria. Perfect. Beatrice cleaned our daughter and placed her in my arms. The moment I held her for the first time was indescribable. After years of believing I would never be a mother, holding this perfect little life in my arms felt like a miracle. Hello, little one, I whispered, touching her delicate face. I'm your mama. She opened her eyes and looked directly at me, as if she already knew me. She had Benjamin's dark eyes and a thick head of hair that reminded me of myself as a child. What shall we call her? Benjamin asked, gently touching the baby's small hand. Iris, I replied without hesitation, like the flower that can grow even in the toughest conditions. Iris Wade, he repeated, smiling. Perfect name. Beatrice stayed with us for 2 days, making sure both Iris and I were doing well. The storm finally stopped on the second day, leaving the outside world covered in a white, silent blanket. You did magnificently, Beatrice told me before she left. At 38, you gave birth to one of the healthiest children I've ever helped bring into the world. Let that shut up all the pessimists in town. In the following weeks, our life completely reorganized around Iris. Benjamin revealed a natural talent for fatherhood, waking up in the middle of the night for feedings, singing lullabies in his deep voice, spending hours simply watching our daughter sleep. She has your eyes when she's determined to get something, he observed one morning, as Iris stubbornly refused to take the bottle I had prepared. And she has your stubbornness, I replied, laughing as I finally managed to get her to take the milk. When spring finally arrived in March, Iris had already become the absolute center of our world. She was an alert and curious baby who seemed to absorb everything around her with an intensity that surprised me. Benjamin had started working on modifications to the house. He expanded the main room, built a more elaborate cradle, made special shelves for the toys he himself had started carving on winter nights. One day, at the end of March, I found him in the barn working on something special. It was a solid wooden beam, carefully polished and prepared. What are you doing? Something I should have done months ago, he replied, showing me the words he had carved into the wood. Victoria, Benjamin, and Iris Wade. Family, 1883. Benjamin, this house needs to know who lives here. Our family needs to be marked on these walls. Together, we installed the beam above the main fireplace. When we finished, we stood admiring the work, with Iris sleeping peacefully in my arms. You know what impresses me most? I said, looking at the beam with our names. What? That a year ago, I was convinced my life was over, that I was too old to start over, too old to love, definitely too old to be a mother. Benjamin carefully hugged me, careful not to wake Iris. And now? Now I know that life truly begins when we stop believing what others say about our limitations. Iris chose that moment to wake up and look at us with her dark, curious eyes. She smiled, her first real smile, and I felt my heart expand in a way I didn't know was possible. Welcome to the world, little Iris, I whispered. You were born into a family that proves love has no age, dreams have no expiration date, and sometimes the biggest miracles happen when we least expect them. Benjamin kissed my head and then gently kissed Iris's forehead. Our family, he murmured, and in that simple word was all the contentment and gratitude a lifetime can hold. Subscribe to the channel and leave a like to get access to more stories like this. Outside, the Montana spring was awakening in full force, but inside our home, surrounded by the warmth of the fireplace and the love of my family, I finally understood the true meaning of being home.